All right, guys, it is right now, looks like about 8:07, 7 minutes after the hour, and Nancy Silvertooth is here. Common Sense Matters is on the radio. Good morning, ma'am.
Well, good morning, Al, and thank you, listeners, for listening to us this morning. We're Common Sense Matters, as Al says, sponsored by the Franklin County Democratic Party. We try... It's our goal to have on people who provide us helpful, informative information that will affect and help us in our everyday lives. And today we have, I want to go ahead and tell you, we have William Anderson, Franklin County Solid Waste Director, and he'll be on here in a couple of minutes. But and I want to give you some Democratic Party three functions that I'm having to remember. I left my list at home. But I want you to this Saturday, if you can, Saturday the 16th, come to the Franklin County Democratic Party meeting at 9 o'clock this coming Saturday at the Annex here in the county. And on Friday, March the 29th at 5 p.m. in the large community room at the Annex, we'll have our every 2-year biennial, I think they call it, Franklin County reorganization. It's called a convention, and in that meeting we elect officers for the upcoming 2 years and delegates from our respective districts. So that is very important for all Democrats. If you're a Democrat or leaning toward being a Democrat, bear in mind that Friday, March 29th, 5 p.m., we're going to have potluck. You'll have something to eat. We're going to bring the party's furnishing our meat, ham maybe, and we're bringing sides. So that's March 29th. April the 6th, the Franklin County Democratic Women are having what we call a gently used treasures sale. That also is going to be in the large community room of the Annex, starting, I didn't write down the time. I think it's 8 until 2, I believe. I think it's 8 until 2. And the day before, Friday, at that same location, is drop-off day. You can drop off items, I think, until 2 o'clock. I believe it's 2, starts at 2. I might have to check on that for you. And by the way, let me tell you this. This is a call-in program, 967-2201. So anytime that you want to call in, you can. And now I think I'm ready to turn William Anderson loose. William, well, I know William. When Helen asked me if I would interview William for this program this morning, I was glad to do so because I won't have to do much interviewing. William knows what he's talking about. And what he'll have is very, very helpful information for us from the aspect of our recycling and our Franklin County tax dollars as to the cost of what Billy's doing. When I first heard that, and there I said Billy, when I first heard that William Anderson was
it's always Billy to me.
Yeah, that's what I told him. And in fact, I told him I've heard it from the mouth of his wife, Pam Anderson, who works for the circuit court clerk. Worked with me for years. I hired her. I believe Billy said it was about 1996, something like that.
She's been there a while.
She's been there. She knows her stuff. And anyway, I've heard Billy Anderson too many times to call him William Anderson. But anyway, when I first heard that Billy had been appointed our solid waste director, I thought, what? He's law enforcement. What's he doing in sanitation? And
cleaning up trash.
Cleaning up trash, yeah. But later on, when I noticed an article in the newspaper that indicated he was doing good, he was really doing things down there, I was so proud because I've known Billy for years, of course from the law enforcement side while I was clerk. And how long were you in law enforcement, Billy?
Let's see, probably about 20 years.
Yeah,
altogether.
A long time. And it's hard to make that switch we were talking about. It's hard to make that switch into something else, but he's done it successfully. And so, Mr. William Anderson, Franklin County Solid Waste Director, tell us what we need to know about what you're doing and what you want us to do to help the situation.
Well, if you want to see a good use of your tax dollars, go down to Joyce Lane down by the jail, and you will see some vast improvements over the years, from whenever we first took over to now, the employees down there are absolutely excellent. And I had somebody the other day, they were a little upset about this or that, and they come down and talked with me, which everybody's welcome to do. And he yelled out, "You're just running a clean dump down here." And I said, "Well, sir, I'm sorry. I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or what, but our facility down there is top notch." And that leads us into some more information. We are actually looking at, in Franklin County, a way to dispose of our waste in the future. And I'll give you a little bit of a background. So, in 1995, across the state of Tennessee, there was 131 landfills. And 90% of those were ran by county governments or municipal governments. And now here we are, 2019, there's 30 landfills, and 90% of those are run by big business. So, big drastic change there. And what we're running into is Middle Point Landfill is in Murfreesboro. If you drive down 840 and look to the right, you'll see a big mountain, and that big mountain is nothing but trash. Well, it has probably at the most 5 years of lifespan left to take waste, trash, whatever you want to call it, into that place. So from Jackson, Tennessee, where the Tennessee River runs, over to Chattanooga, and all up in between, Middle Tennessee is looking for a place to get rid of their waste. And everybody's having the same issue. What are we going to do with our waste in 5 years when Middle Point Landfill closes? And everywhere you go, nobody seems to have much of an answer for it. So back about 3 years ago, Franklin County, being very progressive, as we've always been in Franklin County, decided we need to try to figure out something. So we hired some consultants. They've been with us now for about 2.5 years from Golder and Associates. They're a nationally known company, and started doing some research and said, with the amount of waste that we have here in Franklin County and some of the surrounding counties that we have, what would be the best way to move forward? We looked at composting. We looked at, well, if we just try to recycle everything that's in the waste stream. We looked at gasification, whereas steam is used to burn waste. We looked at all those things. And in every instance, what we ran into was there was still a huge amount of the waste left over that wasn't taken care of at the end of it. Some of it may be 50% of the waste, some of it may be 30% of the waste, whatever it may be. And we said, that's not going to work here in Franklin County. We need something that's going to take care of everything that we take up there. So we started looking into mass burn facilities. And what I want to tell everybody this morning is the mass burn facilities or incinerator that we have operating nowadays is not the old mass burn incinerators of old, where the smokestacks are just boiling out all this pollution and smog and everything else. The ones that we have that are operating now, and several of them are in Florida, where one of our consultants is from and where he lives and resides and works every day, so it's good to have him consulting with us. But the mass burn facilities that we have today are 100% environmentally friendly. And the reason I know that is we took a tour recently of the mass burn facility ran by Covanta in Huntsville back about 3 months ago. The mayor and some of the board members went down and we did a tour of the facility. And when you drive up to the place, if you didn't know what it was, you'd have absolutely no idea. It looks like any other factory that is in their industrial park down there. You drive up to the place, there's zero smell. You get out, you go into the facility, there's still zero smell. And all you see is some steam coming out of some pipes. So, being skeptical that we walked into the place, did our tour of the thing, and that was one of the first questions I had is, well, how much pollution are you putting out? And they showed us their computer and showed us, it was a picture of their smokestack and had all these computers and formulas and all this stuff going. And what the operator told me was that every 3 seconds, there is real-time data that is sent out to the EPA that shows exactly what's coming out of their smokestacks and going out into the environment. And everything, it's got the parameters on there. You know, if you go high or low on this, that, just start shooting off all these signals. I have to shut the thing down, figure out what's going on. But I thought, man, you can't get any better than every 3 seconds you're monitoring this thing and sending out real live reports that's going to somebody at the EPA whose sole job is to make sure that this thing isn't polluting our environment. So we started looking at the mass burn facilities and having one here in Franklin County. And we've got the good thing that we have here in Franklin County is a lot of land that our forefathers decided we need to purchase some of this land up for future expansion, whether it be the county or in the industrial park, getting businesses in, what have you. So we have a lot of area where we could put one of these things. It takes up about 20 acres, so we're not talking about a lot of land space. We have some prime locations here. Some of it is near rail. So, you know, you say, well, hey, why is that important? I talked with a lady not too long ago, and she was telling me she had made a trip up to New Jersey and got into the solid waste and what they do with it for the whole state of New Jersey. And she was very surprised to know that they rail everything that they have to a place in Mississippi. So New Jersey, New York, other places are already starting to use rail to move their waste around. If you don't know, rail's pretty inexpensive to move things these days. So they're packing all their waste into rail cars and they're shipping it down to Mississippi and they're burying it in a landfill down there. And I thought, man, wouldn't that be great? We're in between New Jersey and Mississippi. If we could get some of their waste to come in here and help us pay for the thing. So what we're looking at is putting in a mass burn incinerator that would take, I'm estimating, somewhere around 10 years to pay for itself. And the lifespan of them, from when we talked to the folks at Covanta, is about 30 years. Well, theirs has been in operation now for 30 years, and they've got another 30 years that they're putting on top of the thing. So they started back in the early 90s. And they have no intention of stopping anytime soon. They just keep updating as everything goes on, and as the years go by, they keep updating. So now they're looking at a 60-year lifespan. You know, could be 100 years. Who knows? As long as you keep updating the machinery and the equipment that it takes, it could be an indefinite amount. So if we can pay for this thing in about 10 years, now all of a sudden Franklin County is in a position to not only save money with their waste, but now we're making money. And when I say making money, we're talking about millions of dollars that could be coming into the county that other people are coming to pay us to dispose of their waste. So we're looking at a 600-ton facility. And I'll give you some numbers that we currently have. So right now, this very day in Franklin County, what we have budgeted annually to do nothing but put our waste into the ground is $500,000. So the facility that we're talking about probably would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. And these are all rough estimates at this point, but somewhere around the neighborhood of $30 million. So what we would do then, of course, we'd have our savings in the bank, but now all of a sudden we start charging the counties around us to bring us their waste, because everybody, like I said, in the whole state is running into the same issue. They don't have anywhere to put their waste, so they're going to have to take it somewhere. If we're closer to them, then it's going to be to us. So they start paying us to take their waste, and you know, maybe we do get somebody from New Jersey, New York, or one of the other big cities is railing us their waste. And now all of a sudden we've turned into a pretty big multi-million-dollar business that we would have here in Franklin County, and very quickly we would pay for the facility and the burden would no longer be on the taxpayers. So kind of in a nutshell, that's everything that we're looking at, and you know.
Billy, Billy, let me ask you. You made a presentation to our Long Range Committee recently, and sort of what was their response, basically?
Well, I'll tell you,
seem to be positive.
Everywhere I go in the county, it is very positive. Everybody seems to understand the predicament we're in, and let me expand a little further on the predicament that we are in. So if we can't find something to do with our waste within the next 5 years, the mayor and I and my board for sanitation think we won't be paying $500,000 a year to get rid of waste. Now all of a sudden we're paying $1 million a year to get rid of waste.
And this is something that will not go away.
No,
it has to be dealt with. That's what I've been thinking on this since before, and I thought, well, we've got to deal with this somehow. Yeah,
absolutely. And if we don't, now all of a sudden we're like everybody else that we're trying to get their business moving forward. Is we're going to have to pay somebody to take their waste. And you say, well, what are we going to pay them? Well, it's whatever they want, because we don't have a choice. We have to get rid of our waste, and everybody's always going to have waste. And people say, well, you can recycle everything. Well, that is not the case. There are certain things that market and move really well. Plastic bottles, detergent bottles, milk jugs, newspaper, cardboard, aluminum cans, metal. Those things all move rather well. So we concentrate our recycling efforts on those things. But if we get into a place where all of a sudden we're taking people's waste in and trying to pull recyclables out of that, that's what's called in my business a dirty MRF operation.
Yeah.
And a lot of that,
yeah, that would be.
It's all kind of contamination, everything that's on it. And what we've ran into just within the last year is all of a sudden now China, who used to be where we exported all that dirty MRF material to, has said we're no longer taking America's trash. And essentially that's pretty much what we were sending them, is just big shipping containers of trash we were sending, and they were picking the recyclables out of it. And China said, we don't have to take this anymore, we're not going to take it anymore. So they have stopped basically that market, and now what you're finding is everybody that's in the recycling business is scrambling to get to just the items that are marketable in their area. And we're very fortunate in the southeast that most everything that we recycle at our facility, and we do a big portion of our waste we're recycling, probably a quarter or more of it, but we're able to market that easy in our region. So a lot of our stuff goes to Kentucky, to Alabama, to Georgia. The areas that are around us, especially our cardboard, goes to a lot of the paper mills, and the southeast has a lot of the paper mills.
Do you have any idea of the percentage of us here in Franklin County that do recycle, and as opposed to those who don't? And of course we can see right off, and we've heard this is not new. We know we're supposed to recycle. In fact, on your website here, the first page it says please recycle. Is there a percentage that you're aware of that are of the households? I guess you'd count households that are recycling as opposed to those that are not.
So we did a study back about a couple of years ago, and we found out at that time there was probably 25% of the homes in Franklin County were recycling. And we've had a big push, and here at this radio station, one of our big promoters of this is to try to get people to recycle. And Franklin County has listened. In the almost 5 years I've been there now, we started out, my recycling manager hardly worked. And now they can't take a break, they can't sit down because they're working so much and the material piles up so quickly, which is absolutely what we want. So I'm still going to say that number's maybe around 27, maybe 30% at the most, but there's a lot more that we could do. And we had a waste study we did a couple of years ago and found that 20% of the material that was actually in the waste was immediately 100% recyclable. So, 20% of $500,000 is nothing to sneeze at. If we could get that material out and the homeowners would bring it to us or put it out for their curbside recycling, and all the cities in the county have curbside recycling now.
Oh, so that's great. I didn't realize all the cities
every
do.
Single one of them.
And I would encourage you, if you're not recycling, if you ever start, you sort of get to be a fanatic about it. You can't stand to put your cereal box in your ordinary trash, or your milk jugs, or your beverage bottles. You just want to. There's just something about it if you start that. And of course, we know the advantages not only money-wise to the county. That's us taxpayers. We're gonna, if we don't deal with it and do everything we can do, it's going to come back to us. And I encourage you, if you're not recycling, please start. And as William says, we have in the cities, they'll pick it up.
Yep, and, every 2 weeks, all you have to do is contact your city hall, tell them where you live. They'll give you the starter kit, we like to call it, and they'll come to your door and pick it up. So all you got to do is carry it out to the curb. You know, keep everything separate. Your plastics in one bag, your paper, junk mail in another, cardboard, cans. Keep all that stuff separated for us, and they'll pick it up, bring it to our facility. So everything that we have throughout the whole county comes to our facility down on Joyce Lane, and we separate it out best we can, and that's how we not only make a little money off of it, but we save the money because we don't have to pay to throw it away.
Right, right. And then we have our convenience centers, of course, throughout the county, and they have very accessible hours. I know out where I live, there's one on, I think it's Industrial Park Road.
Yep.
Big sign out there, and usually where they're located is very accessible. And so just separate your stuff out. And if you ever start doing it, you just, as I say, you sort of become fanatic about it.
It's not hard. I
don't
think. I started about 5 years ago myself. I was guilty of, I never recycled before I took this job, and then found out how important it was, and that, we're not throwing the stuff away. Some people still think, I'm not going to take my time to recycle because y'all just throw it away anyway. That is absolutely not the case, and you're welcome to come see us anytime and realize that's not the case. But whenever I started recycling, I found that I no longer, I'd carry 2 or 3 cans out to the side, to the curb for the city to pick up once a week, and now I may have maybe a half of a can because I'm recycling all the other stuff.
Right. Oh yeah, it saves your real garbage. You won't have as much. Then tell me this: you all pick our recyclables up. They go to your facility down on Joyce Lane, and y'all actually take it there and, of course, put it where it goes. The cardboard in one place.
We separate it out.
You separate it out. And who actually it's picked up there?
Yep. So when you put the stuff on the curb, one of the cities will pick it up, or if you carry it to the convenience center, we'll pick it up and we take it to our facility. We separate it out, and if it never fails, even with the best recycle system that you have, there's always some kind of contamination in there. So we'll weed out the contamination. And one of the things of contamination, the reason why it's so important for you to separate the stuff is, if you've got it all mixed in one bag, we don't have the time to sit and separate that out. So we're just going to throw that in the waste. But once it's separated, we flatten it to the best of the ability that we can. We've got equipment down there that flattens it out. Then we scoop it up. We put it in the balers. It gets baled. And we actually have commodities brokers and then vendors that will purchase that material from us, and we send it out in the tractor-trailer loads. And right now we're sending out 2 trucks a week of nothing but cardboard. So
wow, yeah, cardboard and plastic. They just you can fill up a bag quickly with just those.
Absolutely, and if you don't do anything else, and I encourage you to do your plastics and paper and all that. But if you don't do anything else, please don't throw the cardboard away. That is our big money maker.
Good.
And it takes up so much room in the waste, and there's really no need for it, because just about every cardboard box that you see that's out there, it came from a cardboard box previously. So there's really no loss in recycling cardboard.
Well, that's good to know. Cardboard, you're making money for the county, saving money for the county. So if you just did those three things, cardboard, plastic, and paper, newspaper builds up so fast.
It does, and junk mail. You have all that junk mail
yeah.
come. Some people bring us their aluminum cans, and we're glad to have them, and we recycle those as well. But take those yourself over to CFC or one of those places and get you a little money for them. That's
good to know. Where is that now? Where can
CFC over in Tullahoma.
CFC.
They'll pay you for your cans. It's not a whole lot, but it just depends. You might want to get a truckload full before you go over there to make sure it's worth your while. But you're very welcome. You can bring them to us. But a lot of the churches and things will collect their cans and keep them, and they'll have kind of make it a little fundraiser for the church, and we're fine with that because again, it's not going into the waste stream.
Right. Well, that's good to know. I had heard that you can take your aluminum cans somewhere, but I didn't know where it was. So that's over at CFC.
Yep.
I think it's on the sort of the Manchester Highway.
Yeah, it's on Highway 55.
Yeah.
Going out towards Manchester. It's not far outside of the city limits. It may actually still be in the city limits of Tullahoma. If you just tuned in, you've been listening to William Anderson, Franklin County Solid Waste Director, who's given us very valuable information this morning on what we on this program try to do, and that's provide helpful information that helps us in our everyday lives, common sense, and of course dealing with sanitation and solid waste, something that's absolutely there that we're going to have to deal with one way or another. And we are sponsored by the Franklin County Democratic Party. If you'd like to help us out, every now and then we have to scramble for money, but we want to keep doing our programs. So if you'd like to help us sponsor this program, you just need to send a check to Diane Hand, and I thought I'd find her address right quick here, or just call me and I'll give it to you, or call me at 308-7150. And I'll tell you what you need to do, because we would appreciate checks for any amount. You can make the check for any amount, and of course we pay the radio station here. And we do again. Let me mention to you 3 events that we have coming up. This coming Saturday, March 16th, our Franklin County Democratic Party meets at 9 a.m. In the annex. We meet in the small annex room there. You come in the front there, sort of where you go in to vote and go in that little second door. And I urge you to come to this meeting. For one thing, you can get all the information and details that you might like to have on our reorganization meeting, which is Friday afternoon, March 29th at 5, and it's in a large community room. But I urge you to come to our March 16th meeting and get the details. If you think you'd like to work in the Democratic Party, we support common sense, everyday issues that provide the basic needs for people. We want everyone to have an opportunity, have a living wage. We support health care for everyone, public education. Betty Fraley has explained to me, and I didn't know this for a long time, what vouchers and charter schools do to our public education that we're paying our tax money for. People that get vouchers to go to a private school, they get those. They go to a private school, and by the way, I understand that money comes out of our public education funds that we've paid our taxes for. They go to a private school. For some reason, they decide that they don't like it or they're not doing well. They want to come back to the public school. They can.
and the county does not get that money back. The education system does not get that money back. So that's another example of what privatizing does to the thing. I don't hate to say things, but what privatizing does to our governmental entities, providing education and what we ought to be doing. And just this morning, Billy, I didn't read the whole thing, where our United States Supreme Court had made, I believe, a unanimous decision having to do with policing for profit. And I think I just skimmed through it right quick like, but it had to do more with the civil, the taking of people's property. You know, when they're convicted of a crime, or even maybe arrested sometime. Our state laws provide for, and federal also, that there are laws that let law enforcement confiscate their property. And many times what this article said, I picked up on this, many times what they confiscate, not always maybe, is much more valuable than it's not commensurate to the seriousness of the crime and that's not a good word to use, but anyway, they take more property than they should. Yep. According to the crime that's been committed. And this is a case that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and the states, I picked up on this, the courts had been holding, even the federal courts, that, well, that Eighth Amendment that says something, that it says like, no person shall be subjected to excessive fines. Right. Many states so far, state courts and the federal district courts in those states have held that, well, that doesn't apply to states. That doesn't apply to states. And but now the United States, and that's going to affect, I believe it really will affect law enforcement all the way down to what can happen. I got off on privatizing because I thought of these different things that privatizing is not good for. I don't like privatizing prisons. Well, putting people in prison and getting paid for it, it's bad. We can
also put that into the waste setting. And you know, earlier in the show I told you that there were 131 government-owned sited landfills across the state of Tennessee back in 1995, and now we're sitting at 30. And 90% of those are private industry owns those. And what you're seeing now is, back in 1995, when private industry walked into the waste stream market in Tennessee, and they said, "We're your saviors. We're here to help, and we're going to help you and take care of all your stuff." Now those same individuals have no answers except, "We're going to charge you a whole bunch of money to take care of your stuff," and now government is scrambling all of a sudden, saying, "Oh my gosh, what do we do? We privatized all this years ago, and we have to pay whatever they're asking because we're held hostage."
Right, yeah.
So one of the things that I talked about recently at our solid waste meeting was we need to be careful when we do put this facility in, and we're open to partners, and we're open to private individual partners, and when I say that, private industry coming in, we're open to that. But we need to, in Franklin County, remain as the controlling interest of that facility so that we always have control of it. And they can't hold us hostage later on down the road, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever it may be. You know, if we own the facility and we own the land that it's on, and they run it for us, and they take some of the profits or whatever that may be, you know, I'm all for that. I have no issue with it, because a lot of times private industry does run things better than government does. But we still need to have that control and interest.
Right. Those contracts need to be written in such a manner that, as you say, controlling interest. Yep. There's a place where you reach a point that we ought to be in charge. They shouldn't, as you say, they shouldn't get in a position that they can hold us hostage where they're, hey, we just got to do this. And
yep.
Of course, something else, and of course, on law enforcement, you and I have been in law enforcement, and I can't help but just really be interested in those articles, because I was dealt with it for years. But probation agencies, that privately owned probation agencies. Of course, finally, I think the federal government cracked down on the one out of Murfreesboro, and maybe made an example of them, because it's not right for a private agency to make money off of, it's mostly poor people.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't know how many. It would hurt me when I was in the court system, clerk's office, and people would call me up. Maybe a mother of a defendant. This Nancy, he just does not have the money to pay. His court date is such and such. And of course, there was nothing I could do. The law's the law, but I would say just pay something. If you'll the judge doesn't want to put him in jail, but just do the best you do something. And nobody wants to put people in jail. Well, of course, it's really illegal to jail people because they're poor or because they can't pay something. But these privately owned probation outfits are on my bad list. I wish whatever, and I've sort of decided really whatever government can do and ought to be doing, we ought to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes, and you know, it wasn't done in bad judgment or anything. At the time, it seemed like it would save money for government and save money for the taxpayers when they privatized whatever it may be. You know, we've talked about several different things that have been privatized over the years. But what we're finding now is 20 years later, especially in the waste industry, is that maybe that wasn't such a good idea, and that government does have a responsibility, and they need to keep that control and interest. And you know what's happened, like in Murfreesboro, for instance, is they have sold all their garbage trucks, all their collection trucks, all their transport trucks. They've sold all of their equipment, and now that the private industry that's there is closing up shop and moving out, now they're going to have to make all those purchases again of brand new equipment, almost start over from scratch, to be able to handle everybody's waste. So you absolutely don't want to put yourself in a predicament of that. And somebody told me recently, we were having the same conversation, and what you always have to ask yourself as being in government is, what if they leave tomorrow? Because they're in it to make money. They should be.
That's right. Yeah.
What if they leave tomorrow? What are you going to do?
Right.
Touch on monetary again. Once again, you mentioned roughly $30 million to bring this burn center into the county, and of course, we just recently remodeled a jail. Quite a bit of money went there. We're getting ready to start construction on 2 middle schools. Quite a bit of money there. Yep. And there's other concerns about developing an infrastructure that they're working on right now, trying to position ourselves. I realize that this is another major expense, and people are going, you know, I just don't have that in my wallet anymore. But on the other side, if you don't do it, it's still going to get into your wallet. Yep. So what are they thinking? I know you guys have been thinking about and talking about how are you going to manage to fund this project, and we're going to have to do it before somebody else does it, or it's not going to be viable for us. So we're kind of under the gun that we can't really afford to wait.
We are, and when you sit down with your commissioners and talk, the ones that are very actively engaged in it, and there are several, they're talking about 2 years, I think, roughly, the high school will be paid for and will be out from under that debt bond. So at a minimum, it's at least going to be 2 years before we're able to put something like this in. In the meantime, what we're doing is we're sitting down with the folks from the state next week, and we're very actively seeking their buy-in, because, you know, the state has an obligation to us as well. This isn't just a Franklin County thing. It's not just a Rutherford County thing. This is all of Middle Tennessee's running into this issue. So we're sitting down with the powers that be at the state and trying to get them on board with grant funds that may be out there. And we're not talking about small change grants. We're talking about, you know, millions of dollars that are out there for this type of industry to come into Franklin County. And you say, well, why waste energy? Well, the thing will burn and dispose of 99%, probably more like 100% of everything that you put into it, and then the offtake of that is the steam that it produces. And what they're doing down in Huntsville, Alabama with it is they're piping that steam over to Redstone Arsenal, and they run their boilers and make electricity with it and run their heating elements and all this type of stuff. So if we set something like this up in the industrial park, that would be another avenue of some funds coming in to help pay for the thing. Is we sell the steam, or we have someone, one of our local industries may be interested in putting in a turbine, a steam-operated turbine, and they can produce secondary power for themselves. So all those things are in the works, and we are definitely looking for a partner, whether it be public, private, government, whoever it may be, and going into this thing. And sat down with several of the counties that are adjacent to us last night in a meeting, and all of them are very interested in being some kind of a partner with Franklin County moving forward with this thing. So I think all in all we can get the funding, and the taxpayers of Franklin County won't have to foot the entire bill of it. But again, we want to put ourselves in a situation where we own it and we control it, so that moving forward for, could be 60 years, well after I'm dead and gone, this thing is still doing its job and taking care of the waste in Franklin County.
Right, but what about people who says, I don't want that garbage brought into my county? People who are against landfills and things like that. Is this going to be something that people are going to go, no, I don't want that?
Well, absolutely, the people will have a buy-in for it, and before we ever do this, we'll have several town hall meetings in the next year or so. We'll sit down with everybody, and everybody will be able to give their opinion on it, whether they want it, they're for it, they're against it, whatever. But to be able to help pay for this thing, I think you're almost going to have to take waste from the outside coming in. I don't think we can foot the bill of something like that ourselves and put all that on the backs of taxpayer. And what we're looking at, so Franklin County probably does 50 tons a day. And when I say that, that's what the county is responsible for. If you include the city of Winchester and some of the other cities' numbers in there, you may be talking about 100 tons a day. The facility that we're going to put in is a 600-ton facility per day, is what it will process. So you're going to have 500 other tons there where we can be making a revenue stream off of it to help pay for the thing a whole lot quicker. And as I said, after it's paid for, now all of a sudden you're in a place where the county is bringing in a lot of extra money that then you could put savings in other things, and also lower the cost, for Franklin County. So there's a law that says that anything that you take in for waste, you have to turn around and spend it back on waste. But, it could be a situation where all of a sudden we're not paying for waste in Franklin County. Everybody else is paying for our waste. And for us
so it can't go back in the general fund?
Not supposed to. But if you have that private partner that's in there with you, now all of a sudden they're making it, they would be taking some of those revenues too, because obviously if they're going to be in it, they're going to be trying to make a profit. So that's why you want that private partner in there with you as well. You can't put that money back in the general fund, but to have zero waste, and when you say, well, I don't pay for anything waste right now, you're paying for it, you just don't know it. Every time you pay your property taxes, you're paying to get rid of your garbage here in Franklin County.
Right. You have a budget in there that's included.
Yep.
You're a county department head, so that goes into along with every other department head, and makes up our county budget. You're exactly right.
So now all of a sudden, if you don't have to pay that percentage of it, because I get a percent of the penny, everybody in county government, all the different offices get a percent of the penny that comes in off the property taxes, and if I'm no longer having to get a percent of that penny, that should be a savings that then you could divert to somewhere else, or you lower the property taxes. That'd be great. I'm a property owner in Franklin County myself, and I have to pay taxes just like everybody else does.
Everybody, that gets people's attention. Having to pay higher taxes for anything, we don't want to do that. And Billy, you have this facility that in Florida.
Mm-hmm. bunch of facilities.
Bunch
like
of
this.
facilities.
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
And if you've got some of those that have been in business for several years and can see what's happening with them,
yep.
that does give you a realistic idea as to what you could do.
Yeah, incineration has been around for a long, long time, and a lot of people still remember the incinerator that they had in Nashville. But what I want to tell everybody is that those incinerators are not out there anymore. The EPA and our federal government's got involved, and the ones that produce all that smog and all that waste, they're not there anymore. Technology is so much further advanced than even that thing was back in the 90s. So you don't have that pollution anymore. But there is so much research that has went into those things, and in Great Britain and London and all those areas, this is what they use. They don't have landfills there. And Florida has kind of taken the initiative because of their swamps and things like that. Landfills just don't work in Florida. So they've been doing this for years and years. So the technology is there. It's definitely not anything that we would be recreating here. So it's a very, very safe investment. And there are predictions out there. We would know how long it would take to pay for the thing and all that. So we're not, kind of flying blind, I like to call it. Another thing that we have to look at, Tennessee doesn't want any more landfills, and I'll give you a for instance for that. So several years back they passed the Jacksonian law that allows for every county commission in Tennessee can decide whether they want a landfill sited in their boundaries or not. And I talked to some of the people that were in charge back in the early 90s when they talked about putting another landfill in Franklin County, and they had people show up to the meetings with shotguns saying, not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard, yeah.
So nobody wants this thing, and they just actually recently passed a law that said you can't site a landfill anywhere within 5 miles, as the crow flies, of a single house. So you think about in Tennessee, anywhere in Tennessee where there's not a house within 5 miles. So if it's not already cited and not already permitted, it's not going to happen in Tennessee. So landfills are going to be a thing of the past.
Right. We have to do something else, don't we? And Billy, I'm sitting here being appreciative of your knowledge and your expertise on this. And you've done this just in, about not quite 5 years. I asked you when you were appointed, and it was October of 2014. And I want to thank you for what you've done. I can tell that you've dug into it and know what you're talking about.
Yes, ma'am. I try to do the best I can. I've got some real great folks down at the solid waste facility, and they're all very professional, and they're all very concerned. And, of course, all of us live here in Franklin County, so we all have that concerted effort. And if you'll give me, I know we're about to run out of time here. Something my assistant keeps texting me saying, don't forget.
Don't forget, okay.
So April 6th, everybody write this down, is our annual Household Hazardous Waste Day. That's the day you can bring all your old paints, your latex, oil-based, if you have a lot of the fluorescent light bulbs, a bunch of pool chemicals, any kind of garden spray or any of that stuff that may be chemicals, you can bring them to us at Joyce Lane, 419 Joyce Lane. We'll be open from 8 till 1 p.m. that day, and the state actually sends hazardous waste contractors in on that day, and the state pays for every bit of it. So if you've got any of that stuff, and we get calls about this time every year saying, when's paint day? So it is April 6th. It's on a Saturday, 8 to 1. And we'll also be there giving out free tarps to the first ones in line. So the Tennessee Department of Transportation, through their litter grant program, is sponsoring us to give out tarps for people to cover their beds of their trucks, because I don't think a lot of people in Franklin County intentionally litter. I think a lot of it is in the back of their truck, and as they go down the road, it blows out.
Right.
And a lot of people aren't familiar, but there is a law that says if you've got waste in the back of your truck, it has to be covered. So we're going to be giving out free tarps. I think we've got a little over 100 of them. So, whoever comes in that day get a free tarp.
That's great. And that April the 6th day coincides with our Franklin County Democratic Women's Gently Used Treasures sale. We used to call it rummage sale, but we want gently used treasures. And you can come on April 6th, stop by there, take your stuff down to Joyce Lane that you need to get rid of, come by the county annex, the large conference room back there, see what you might want to buy. But on the day before that, April 5th, while you're gathering up your items that need to go down to Joyce Lane, to the convenience center, on April the 5th is the day that you can drop off items, your gently used treasures that we'd be glad to have, for our rummage sale the next day. So April 5th, April 6th, you need to put big X's on those days. They're good days to do a good spring house cleaning. I want to again mention just quickly, I've got 8:57. I guess I got about 3 minutes. 2 minutes. It just 2 minutes. I want to remind you, please come to our March 16th this Saturday. That's this Saturday. Bob Zimmerman is our chair. He does a great job, and we're again Democrats support. Actually, common sense, the issues that affect us in our everyday, in our lives, our basic issues. A livable wage. We want everyone to have an opportunity for a living wage. Health care, public education, criminal justice reform, basics. And by the way, we are not, quote, for abortion. We are for pro-life in the full meaning of life from conception all the way to the grave. When those babies are born, we want them taken care of. We want pregnant mothers to get health care before their pregnancy and after. Everything that would deter abortion, that mother having an abortion, we support. We don't want a young, low-income, or young or whatever age, low-income pregnant woman to face abortion for something that we could help with and her not have to even face that. So come to our meeting Saturday. We'll fill you in on the details on our reorganization on March 25th. And I love being a Democrat because we love everybody. We don't have to think or we don't have to judge if somebody was born the way they were. There are certain things you just have to leave up to God. But we do as human beings. We want to do everything we can to make lives better for everybody. So, thank you, William Anderson. I'm so glad I got sort of educated today. And by the way, on this program, we want to help you. We want to give you good, helpful information. So we'll see you the next. Well, let's see. This is the 14th. So I believe our next program is the 28th. Thanks, Al.
Miss
Thanks
Nancy,
for listening.
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.